Thank you. At exactly 7:59. Today is Tuesday, December the 11th. Item number 2, review the discussion of memorandum of understanding between San Benito CISD and Cameron County Children's Advocacy Center Incorporation. This is the Monica House and Maggie's House for the 2018-2019 school year.
Good evening, Board. Member Flores, Monica's and Maggie's house. I'm here to answer any questions you might have regarding the MOU we'd like to sign with you guys.
What's the extent of the services or the agreement, just in general?
So in general, our MOU lasts 3 years. And the reason it only lasts 3 years is every year we do change. Like this year, we're bringing on new systems as opposed to last year. The majority of our clients that we saw, which here in Cameron County, there weren't that many here in San Benito ISD, but now they are bringing more, and the majority of the clients that we see here through San Benito are through bullying as well as online solicitation. So as perpetrators evolve, our MOUs evolve as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Is this an agenda item?
Perfect. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Edward Place. Thank you.
Let me just- Item number 3, review discussion of approval of the spelling bee coach stipend for the 2018-2019 school year.
All right, so here we're asking the board to consider a $500 stipend for our spelling bee coaches at the elementary and middle school level. We ended up not having, I'm looking to my elementary people, not having the UIL, correct? So that money was budgeted for those stipends for our elementary UIL, but are not going to be expended this year. And so the recommendation is that we pay our coaches for the time they put in to coach our spelling bee kids.
So there's no UIL this year?
Elementary, no.
Elementary? Huh.
Middle school, we just held it at BC.
Huh. Agenda item? Number 4, review and discussion of the approval of purchase of the Zello online subscription for the 2018-2019 school year.
And so Mr. Guerra is going to talk about this program a little bit. The proposal in front of you is for 8 through 12 only. But I'll let Mr. Guerra give a little insight as to what the program is, please.
Yeah, this is a state requirement that's for secondary. Zello, what it does, it kind of checks its interest inventory for the students before they go into 9th grade. With that inventory, the students are able to see what pathway they're going to choose. And just to kind of give a little promo, if you haven't looked in the back, that's one of our banners that we're kind of putting out all the elementaries. That one has to do with health science. So it kind of shows our programs that we have at the high school, talks to the kids about the programs that we have already to try to catch them at a young age. Each high school, each elementary will have one. In addition to that, they'll have also all the pathways that we have. Going back to the Zello program that we're talking about, like I said, this is something that's required by the state. I know we went through some, we had some questions in October. They did a presentation on that. For the cost, it's under the Perkins. It's $24,492 for the junior high, and pretty much 8th grade and up. I don't know if you have any questions on that.
Mr. Guerra, what was used before this one, this item?
Before it was Naviance,
Okay. For career technology, really?
yeah. Well, it was incorporated with that portion.
Okay. So I understand that the inventory is going to begin in eighth grade? Is that right?
Correct.
So what's the rollout plan for this concept, if any?
Well, the company will come down, do some training with us. We'll meet with the 8th grade teachers first, and then also the secondary. They always have the online support. I know we did actually when we did the training, I mean, not the training, but when we brought them down, it was online, kind of a training that we went through here with the board. They kind of asked questions. But there is a specific rollout plan on that, in the sense of it will be done with junior high first, and then the counselors at the 9th grade academy, and then with our teachers at the high school as well, and counselors.
One more question. Are there other schools locally that have Zello?
Yes, right now, not McAllen, but Sherryland, they're using the old version, which is career cruising. they're about to switch over to Zello. It used to be called Career Cruising, but now the new version is Zello. Brownsville is interested. They contacted me. They want to know when we roll out, if we do it, and they kind of have some questions, but that's one area. Also, I think Dubisky, kind of when I went out there and talked to them, when I went up, I was here last month. I was at, if you know, I was out there looking at the hogs with the ag teachers. So I stopped by there and checked what they're using, some of the ideas that they got as well.
$24,492, that's the total cost for all students?
That's for 8th grade and the high school, correct. You kind of see the breakdown there. It's per student.
Okay. All right, no more questions, thank you.
Agenda item? Okay. Roman number 5, a review, discussions of district innovation, the DOI, for the 2018-2019 school year.
Yes, ma'am. So what we're asking the board to consider is a resolution to consider a designation of District of Innovation Plan. The board is not approving a plan. It simply gives the ability for us to discuss it as a district and potentially bring a plan back to this board at a later date. Just kind of as an overview, should the board take this action, if it makes the agenda for next week and the board were to take that action with that resolution, next step is a public hearing with the school board. The board then appoints a committee to develop a plan. I would ask that be the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, since that's our standing district improvement committee. That committee, I'm going to ask if this board approves a resolution to consider 4 areas. I'll go over those 4 areas, but understand going into this that whatever committee, should we go forward, considers these 4 areas, they could recommend that we go forward with 0, all 4, or anywhere in between. These are not finalized. These are discussion points that I'd like to bring to the table. One of the areas that we are looking at discussing, if the board chooses to go forward with the resolution, is our calendar start date. Excuse me. Currently, the state law is that you cannot begin school before the 4th Monday in August, and it kind of pigeonholes you into what your calendar is going to look like for the rest of the year. Several school districts across the state, I would venture a guess that of the 700-plus District of Innovation plans that exist inside of Texas, over 90% of them include the calendar option. It just gives you more flexibility. You can start earlier, and then if you want to move your professional development days, your in-service days throughout the school year, you can do that. If you wanted to start earlier and end earlier in May, you can do that. It opens up options for your calendar committee. Right now, knowing that the 4th Monday is our start date, you've got a couple of options, but it's really pretty limited. So that is one area that, if the board approves the resolution, that I would like to have the opportunity to discuss with that committee. The second area that I would like to discuss is on probationary contracts. Currently, when we hire a teacher who has taught in the state of Texas 5 of the 8 previous years, they go on a probationary contract for a single year. And many times, what a principal is left with, by the time we do contract renewal in the spring, March and April, a teacher, they've been in the classroom, they've done their evaluations, they've done one-year T-tests, and sometimes they come up with, it's kind of borderline. You see potential with the teacher, but you're not 100% sure you want to put that teacher on a term contract. And so you have to make that decision. They go on term, or do we move to non-renew? What we'd ask, or we discuss with this committee, is extending that period for 2 additional one-year periods, so that if we have a teacher that we think is worth keeping and growing, but we're not 100% sure where they are, we'd have the same 3 years that we have with a brand new teacher. It would just kind of take out of play that 5 of 8 rule. We'd have 3 years to fully evaluate, make sure the right people are there before we lock them into a term contract. It would have no impact on current employees. This would be for future hires only. The third area that I want to discuss with that committee and see if it's worth going down the road on is the class size ratio. Texas Education Code, Section 25112, states that grades K through 4 may not have a class size ratio, not ratio of greater than 22:1 without requesting a class size exemption. When I got here, if you all recall, we would be in situations at our elementary campuses where once we reached that 22:1, we had kind of a flow chart, an order of campuses. So a parent might move in with their family across the street from elementary A, and they've got a kindergartner, a second grader, and a fourth grader. They'd go to that elementary. Oh, there's room in our kinder and our second. Oh, but fourth grade, we already have our 22:1. You need to go look at campus B. Made no sense. So if they move into an attendance zone, even if we are already at 22:1, excuse me, we've been doing what I think is right for students and right for families. We allow them to enroll at that campus. And as long as we're not going over 24:1 in that K4 grade level, then we go through the state with our class size exemption. Mrs. Ortiz spends, I don't know if it's an hour, I don't know how long it is, pulling together the information. She has to monitor the enrollment in every single classroom, elementary, for K4 specifically. And then if there's a need to apply for a waiver, she does the paperwork for that, has to come to the board for approval. We submit it to TEA, and this year, total of 10 minutes later, we had an email back from TEA approving all of our class size waivers. So we put more time into preparing those waivers than TEA does into really, apparently, reading or reviewing those. If it's not an IR campus, they're gonna say yes to it. So this would allow just a little more efficiency in that process. You can include in your district of innovation plan, should this be an area that committee recommends. You can include a district cap. My recommendation is 24:1. I know our neighbors that wear Cardinal Red have 25:1 in their district of innovation plan. But again, these are all talking points that if a resolution is passed, we can have the conversations on. The last area that I'd like to have a conversation on with that committee and in our public hearing is on the area of teacher certifications. Would recommend that we look at CTE courses and look at professional work experience instead of a bachelor's degree. We can then work with those people we hire who might have industry certifications. They might have welding experience, it might be auto mechanics, and know the material and be able to help get our kids ready to become licensed, certified in those areas, but might not have a bachelor's degree. And they would simply need help then with the lesson planning, the pedagogy, classroom management, those types of things that we can provide through our mentoring program. So those are the 4 areas that if the board were to approve a resolution and appoint a committee, that I would like to discuss at length with such a committee.
Yeah, I think historically, I think Mr. Mendez and I are the only ones on the board where this has been brought before under Dr. Vega. And there was just a loud opposition to it without the understanding of what exactly the district was needing. And certain entities, of course, have been constant in their opposition, especially most recently when we've been trying to propose it. So I want to thank Dr. Carmen and the administration for really spelling out what exactly we wish to do with the districts of innovation, because I think when we hear districts of innovation, we automatically think of punitive and pejorative measures towards teachers, and that's not the case. And so I'm glad we've spelled out this is not exactly what we're talking about, and the idea that we're actually assisting teachers, whether it's through certification, I guess, extensions and other options, class size ratios. I know that's something that was talked about before as why we should not move forward with it, but we do it anyway as a district. And so in order to save those resources and time, especially Ms. Ortiz, because she has, much more important things to do, especially in our recording our scores and whatnot. So again, I just want to thank, because I think this is where I think we needed to be, where we fully informed our staff of what we need from districts of innovation, and not something that's a cookie cutter argument that has been imposed upon from entities onto other districts.
And I'd like to add a couple of items in regards to the teacher certification, especially in industry and certification. Most community colleges and technical college actually use that method to offer their pretty much graduating class from high school into post-secondary, the opportunity to teach for a specific certification, whether it's in automotive, the ACES or Microsoft Word and whatnot. So the model does work if it's applied properly. And I think that from the board's perspective, that's where we need to make sure that those items are being laid out, and the processes and procedures for curriculum alignment and review is actually taking place. And again, that model exists in higher ed, so I think if it's good for higher ed, it's definitely good for the secondary.
Thank you. I do want to point out one other thing. We, of course, has been discussed, these areas, and debated. So at our last principal meeting, we discussed with our principals whether they felt like we should go forward with any of these 4 items or none of them. And so we sent out a survey, anonymous, I mean, only 18 of them, but it was anonymous. And they could select whether the calendar option, the class size ratio, they could select any of those 4 that they felt like it was worth going forward. Because I don't want to come up here and get beat up over something that, I mean, it's not going to fly. So we put those 4 out there, or they could select none of the above. And I'm going to ask Ms. Ortiz, because I believe it's 100% of the principals recommended that we went forward with the calendar. And I'm going to ask you for the other 3, because I don't remember.
So the calendar was at 100% for the probationary contract, 80% for the class size ratio, and 90% for the CTE.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I add, did we get a survey as far as teachers' contract is extended from 1 year to 2-year probationary? I mean, is it gonna affect, because as a teacher, you wanna get a contract, you know, and would that affect us in any way with the particular teachers wanting to stay also? Because I don't want to see that we extended it to 2 years and the gentleman is here 1 year, or lady, and she's going to look forward to another place because she's getting an extra contract. So I just want to compare it, you know.
So I think what you're asking is, are we going to have teachers not want to come to this district if we have
The 2-year contract.
if we have
probationary.
potential for 3 one-year probationary contracts? And that's always a possibility. There are other districts who use this model. I don't know what their numbers are in terms of their applicant pools. As far as like our elementary applicants, I'd be shocked if we still didn't have just a huge pool every time we put a job out there.
Yes.
And again, understand that it gives us the option that we could extend that to another year of probationary, but would not have to. So if a teacher comes in and is a rock star, we're going to lock them down with a term contract still.
Okay. Another question I have, in the ratio from 22 to 25, let's say, the kids that in the elementary, specific elementary, are they first residential people that live around the area, or is it? Okay.
Yes, sir, that's our practice right now. But understand, if we get more than that, we have found that many times, if 4th grade at one campus is large, sometimes 2nd or 3rd is not as large, and we shut down a section and move a teacher to that grade level. Or sometimes other campuses don't have the enrollment that we anticipated, and we've had to move a teacher to fill that out in. If that's not the case and our enrollment is just higher, we post the position and hire. I mean, we're not trying to put more teachers in front of more students in front of a teacher than they can effectively teach. So if they get large, we'll post it and hire a new teacher.
Dr. Carmen, you mentioned on the class size ratio that we could put a cap as a board, and, okay.
It's based on the committee's recommendation, and the board would consider approving or not.
Okay.
Hey, Doctor, let me ask you this, as far as these 4 targeted areas that you asked our principals, which is, I thought the survey was a great idea, because that's one thing that we pushed for as a board was buy-in. Because I think there was just a lack, from our perspective, there was just a lot of lack of communication and, I think misinterpretation of what this whole process is all about, the District of Innovation. But, give us a bigger, like, you know, for us new board members or, you know, that are not really familiar with District of Innovation, because we're not in this educational field, but can you give us a better understanding of how many districts in our local area, in our valley, that actually are districts of innovation?
I did not pull a number. I did look at the two closest ones to see if they had DOI plans, and Harlingen and Los Fresnos both have plans. Harlingen's plan has 3 of these 4 areas. They do not have the contract component in theirs. Los Fresnos has the calendar option only. Across the state, and there's a list of them on the TA website, there's over 700 school districts across the state, but I did not look to see, because they're not broken down by region, I did not look to see how many are in Region 1.
Okay, well, you know, I think from the perspective that when we first brought this up, or we tabled it prior, I think it was just a communication between, you know, our teachers, the associations, and, you know, everybody that this, the plan will affect, directly or indirectly. You know, I think the principals have a huge, you know, input as far as, you know, the cap on what, you know, how many students per ratio, since they're the ones gonna be dealing with the, you know, for the most part, dealing with the teachers and the concerns. But I like the survey, Doc. I think it was, you know, extremely instrumental to make sure that our staff understands that, you know, we're trying to move the district in a positive direction, and they fully, you know, understand what's going on. Thank you, Doc.
Agenda item? Okey-dokey. Item number 6, review, discussion of quick access training for the 2018-2019 school year.
It's Mr. Ray Saldana.
Good evening.
Basically, on this quick access training, what it is, and I'll just read this, what we did in our trainings for the last 2 days. In making school safety a priority, our San Benito CISD will implement quick access, which is an emergency response application that is simplistic, so that the user, while experiencing high levels of stress, will have minimal steps in accessing critical information. Quick access provides all the San Benito CISD selected staff and first responders instant access to critical information during an emergency situation. So basically, it's gonna be an app on our phone, and selected members of our school district will be able to get onto this particular app, and they'll be able to, a selected group will be able to send an emergency message, and then there'll be a second group that'll only be able to receive the messages. On this particular app, they have a copy of our campus crisis plans, so there'll be a drop-down box with all our campuses listed, and it'll go through several items, starting with the maps of the facility, and tell us where all our fire extinguishers are, our AEDs, our first aid kits that we had the training on Stop the Bleed training, and we'll have another drop-down box with crisis definitions, crisis emergency communications, a list of the campus crisis team. We'll have their name, their phone extension, their cell number, all those important information that we need, certified staff list. They'll tell us so-and-so is, all these people on this particular campus are certified for first aid. They're certified in AED training. They're certified in CPR, Stop the Bleed training. So it gives us quick access to those people. Then we also have whether it's a lockdown or bomb threat, and it goes through several other things, bomb threat procedures, evacuation procedures. Should we have to evacuate, it already has the designated areas that campus has, 3 different relocation areas, and we have that with a map and the addresses and the GPS, and then how we're gonna come back if we're going to reunify back at the campus, or from there, it has that plan, and inclement and power weather failure procedures, and a few other things. We also, the very last one is, I'm sorry, the last 2 is daily procedures for securing the campus. It has like a checklist. And the last one is classrooms safety guidelines. And all the plans are universal for our district. The only thing that changes are the names of the personnel at each campus, and of course, the facility maps. So we had the training for the last 2 days. We trained 7 groups of individuals, and pretty easy. I'm not too tech savvy, but it is pretty easy. And if I can kind of catch it on, it really was. everybody that came by left, that really is user-friendly. So it takes away, it eliminates our reaction time, because you just go to this and you just go quick and you send the message or the emergency to our PD, and then it'll go from there. It'll go from there, so it
So I guess
really is.
my only question is, nobody has a flip phone. Will that be a deterrent?
Well, no, there is
Hold
gonna
on.
be some concerns that were brought up, and we will address that as a school district, and, you know, there's some campuses that have a hard time with reception.
Right.
The
And I asked that
country's-
jokingly, but, you know, are
Yeah,
there
no.
other, like you said, the reception, or if
Yes.
they're out in the.
So we're very aware of some of the challenges that are gonna result, but as we roll it out, we're gonna try to roll it out the second week of January, and then we're gonna have like a mock drill, and see what the glitches are and where we need to improve. But the most important thing to remember, it is a working document. So as we go along and we see things, well, we need to change this, or maybe we need to add that, it can be done quickly, and it, you know, it'll come on your phone right away. So
Great.
I think it's a great tool,
Thank you.
and appreciate it.
So, on this app, is it cost, how much is it costing the district, or is that, or is it free?
Yeah,
'Cause if it's free,
Do you recall the
yay.
cost, Mr. Saldana? Do you recall the cost?
The cost, I believe it was $29,000.
It was too good to be true. Okey dokey. That's it? Committee concerns? Nay? Okay.
Yay.
We
Hold on,
adjourn?
Hold on, I do.
Oh, so
I
you do have a concern.
I do. Actually, this is in reference to some of the, for example, what I'd like to do is I'd like to begin or have the conversation of beginning to include our constituency and our media on some of the items that are being conveyed. I know that, for example, the DOI. The DOI came into a lot of scrutiny by an attorney, public comments, and I believe even the paper locally and adjacent to us. But nonetheless, I think it's important for the district as a whole to begin mending those relationships with our media, because if we don't, we're always going to be on opposite sides. And I don't know if the San Bernardino News is here or not. Is San Bernardino News here? Oh, you are? Okay.
Mr. Menace, Chairwoman, I don't think that is germane to the curriculum committee concerns.
Well, it does, because if the media shares information.
I don't know how the
that's-
media imposes its will or is germane to anything we do curriculum and academic related,
It-
other than advertisement and what they pose in news stories.
But the impact and the cognition of information that's conveyed without information that are facts or non-factual, that's imperative to the development of curriculum and the school functions.
I just don't see how a newspaper or media in general impacts our academic services for our students, or how STAR testing has. So Chairwoman, I just don't believe this is germane to a curriculum committee concern.
So explain to me, when is it legitimate? When is it a legitimate concern?
Maybe the next committee, which is the Finance Committee, which impacts budget.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay. Can we adjourn it? Thank you. 8:28, we adjourn. Thank you so much.